Hello, Mr. Gheorghiu.
Hello, how are you?
Good, good. Yourself?
Well, surviving.
Surviving uh, with the heat?
With the
With
heat,
this, with the
that
heat,
everything else,
with
yes.
this hot summer.
Yeah.
Okay, let's start the game. So here is Ribli
Yeah, we have a
Zoltan.
very interesting game against Grandmaster Ribli. He was in that time one of the leading talents of the Hungarian chess school. They had already a very strong chess school in Hungary. They have well-known grandmasters all over the world. Starting with Maroczy, a long time ago, and afterwards Sabo, Barca, and so on. And in our time, when I was playing at the highest level, they had a fantastic team, their golden team, let's say. Portish, Ribli, Sachs, and Adorian. They're the best four players in that period. And finally, they could win also some Olympic Games before the Soviet team. That was already a very
Big
good
performance
performance.
because
Yes,
it's a
yes, of
small
course.
country versus Soviet
No, but
Union.
the Soviets were the best. I mean, in that time, they were clearly the best.
Hmm.
So we have a very nice example here, a very nice game. It's more or less even all the time. It's not very, very spectacular compared with some other games, but it's very important strategically. I mean, it shows very well how to play against a very strong grandmaster. I mean, your opponent. Uh, when the chances are more or less even. I mean, he was very good. I was trying my best also. And finally, we had a very interesting game where, in all these important moments, the game was more or less even. I mean, nobody had a clear advantage until the end. We'll see how did it happen.
So long battle. So you
A
played
long
with what
battle.
color?
I played with black. Yeah, I
Okay.
played with black. We played his variation against the King's Indian. At the first glance, the variation is more or less quiet with G3. It was recommended by Bodvinik and by Smyslov in that time. That gives a very small edge for white if nothing happens, tactically in between. We'll see. And after D6 castle and knight C6, this is the main variation in this line. Before, everybody or almost everybody played knight bd7. That was the old variation with knight bd7, and finally e5, c6, and so on. That is the old line. Knight c6 was more modern, and everybody tried to demonstrate for black that black has a good game, and for white that white has still the small advantage. So we'll see what happens. So after knight c6, knight c6, knight c3, bishop g4. Bishop g4 is a little bit provocative. The main variation here is instead of bishop g4, rook b8 and a6. This is the main line. There are a lot of games, of course. I played also some important games myself against Kolarov in 64, against Bakhtiar in Australia in 71, and so on. A lot of good games. But okay, instead of rook b8 and a6, black tries immediately bishop g4. It's also possible to play immediately e5 here instead of bishop g4 or rook b8.
But
Okay.
what is the idea with the bishop g4? Is
Bishop g4
to develop the bishop or
tries to force a little bit the next moves. I mean, white here has to do something against the immediate threat e5. After e5, if
yes?
white doesn't do anything, for instance, uh, b3, let's say b3 here is not so good because after e5, black has already a very good game, e5, and after e5, d5. Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
so
e5, black, yeah,
so
after
this
b3, e5, after, if white tries immediately d5, yeah,
yes.
black has a good game in both cases. If immediately bishop takes f3, bishop takes f3, and knight d4 is okay for black, or knight d4, yeah, here black has a good game. Or he could play also immediately, instead of, he can try immediately knight d4. That gives also a very good game, because if here white takes in d4 and takes, it's not possible to take with the queen because knight takes d5 and black is better.
Yes, yes, yes.
You see? Yeah.
Because knight
Knight
takes
takes
d5.
d5, and now it's forced. If you take in g4, knight takes c3, and black is much better. And if you take immediately in d5 with the queen, of course, after bishop takes c3, you have the rook under attack and the pawn from e2. And black has no problem at all. Black has a very good game already. So the order of moves is always important in this line, after bishop g4. But if white plays well, white has still a small edge. So, okay, bishop g4, and he played d5 immediately. This is a very good game for white. Now, knight a5 is a good move, and now he plays knight d2, of course. Knight d2. Again, b3 was bad because the diagonal was much too open.
Too open.
Yeah. So knight d2, c5. You have to play c5 because white threatened already here b4, and you lose the knight from a5. So therefore you have to play c5. And now white plays quietly queen c2. He wants to do b3 and bishop b2. It is the idea for white, Yeah. With a small edge, of course. So queen c2 is okay. Queen c8 again is more or less, it's not bad, but it was better to play immediately e5.
Directly e5
instead of queen c8. e5, and that is a very good game for black already. He realized the opening idea, to close the center. And after h3 to retreat the bishop in d7. A very complicated game, but black was okay. It's no problem for black. Okay, after queen c8, the game is more or less complicated now, and is a small edge as always for white, but very small. Now on, you have to play very precisely with black. Now, okay, after b3, you have to trade the bishop. You played queen c8 to come later on with the bishop in h3. That is the idea, So, okay, bishop h3, bishop e2, you take in g2, king take g2, okay, and now you have to do something. e5 is a little bit late, but better later than never, so e5 is still very good for black. And from now on, white tries to demonstrate that he has a small edge. Black has to demonstrate that the game is more or less even without any problem, So who is right, we'll see. Rook e1, b6 is also very good, Now, if somewhere later white has the possibility to push a3 and b4, you have always the retreat move, knight b7, with, a safe position for black. Okay, so now on, knight d1, knight h5. Knight h5 prepares the move f5. This is theoretical, it's okay. Always, in any position, is good. If you have the pawn on f5, is good.
for black.
For black, yes. So from now on, we have a strategical battle between two. If white played already e4 after f5, black is all right. Maybe a small initiative for black already. After e4, e3 is better. e3, f5, still now, and now f4. This is a very good move. F4 that stops the initiative from black, and now black has to choose. He has to choose between e4 and e takes f4. Normally, everybody else would play e4, but after e4, white is, in my opinion, white is clearly better. After e4, knight f2. You trade the bishop later on, and white has the possibility to play g4. He gives the pawn in g4. It's not important because the king is okay. He can take, no.
Yes, sorry.
Later on. Here, if you play e4.
Yes.
No, f4, e4, you push the pawn.
Yes.
e4, and now knight f2 or taking in g7 is the same, okay? Knight f2. Later on, after, you trade the bishop later, and he has the time to push g4. This is the idea, later on. And when you push, you take in b2, he takes with the queen, and later on, the next move is g4. He gives the pawn in g4, he takes the pawn from e4, and later on, he has the initiative, he controls the center, white is better. If you don't play like this and you retreat the knight,
yes.
the knight after g4 later on,
Yeah.
let's say you retreat the knight. after g4 somehow.
Yes.
You play that queen d7 or something with black. He plays g4. Yeah, you put the knight in f6, and he pushes again with g4, and he has a very strong idea to play later on with the knight somewhere, e8 or something. Then he has the possibility to come with some attacking chances with h4, h5, and that is better for white. It is clear, Yeah.